Chamishi, the fifth reading in Parshas Chukat, and we read it independently of Balak, covers the subject of the passing of Aaron HaKohen and the subsequent fallout. So we're going to take a look at the beginning of Chamishi, and then we'll move ahead into the middle of Chamishi. Perek Chof, chapter 20, verse 22. The Torah says, having completed its narrative of the confrontation with Edom, which resulted in nothing in the end, simply the Jewish people turning away. The Torah says, Vayisu mikadosh. They set forth from a place called Kadesh. Vayavayu bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel came. Kol ha'eda, the entire congregation, Hoir ha'har, to the mountain of the mountain. That's literally how it translates. So Rashi says, why does it say Kol ha'eda? As if sometimes some of the Jewish people came, and sometimes other segments of the Jewish people came. Wouldn't they all have come? Always? So Rashi says, if you say Vayavayu b'nei Yisrael, does it not mean the entirety of the nation? Says Rashi, Kulam Shleim. The emphasis here is that everybody was equally intact. Nobody here was living under the specter of imminent passing or death, meaning that they would not go into the land of Eretz Yisrael. They were Shleimim, they were Ve'imdim Likones La'aretz. They're all prepared now to enter into the land of Israel. There was not one amongst them who was under the sway of the decree that you won't go into the land of Israel. In other words, this tells us now which time we're in. Shekvar kolu meisei midbar, that now we're already in the period of time in which meisei midbar, those who were destined to die in the desert, had already died. The Elu, and now the ones who are in the present narrative, me'oisen shekasav behem, these are the ones that the Torah speaks about and says, Chayim kulchem hayoyim. The pasuk says, "V'atam adveikim b'ad Hashem Elokechem." You cleave unto Hashem your God. Chayim kulchem hayoyim. You're all alive today. So these were the live ones, and that's why it says, "Vayavayu b'nei Yisrael kol ha'eda." The emphasis is the entirety of the people. Ibn Ezra says that there's an element of follow-up to the confrontation with Edom. Israel wanted to pass through the land of Edom. What was Edom's response? Nothing doing. And not only said nothing doing, they came fully armed. They said, we'll have a meeting. You're talking about your power, the power of prayer? We have the power of the sword, and we're prepared to live by it. So you would have thought that had a massive army come to the border, they would have snatched somebody. Somebody would have been lost. A stray arrow would have been launched. And therefore the Ibn Ezra says, this is to teach you that although Edom came for battle, they were not playing games. This was not a war game. This was a very, very serious threat. But nonetheless, Nifkad Mehamish, not a single member of the Israelite nation was lost. Ramban says, this is not about the previous verses, which speaks about the confrontation with Edom. This is about the next verse. What happens at Hor HaHor? What happens? Aaron passes. And when Aaron passes, we're going to read, and Rashi will tell us about this, how his funeral was twice as large as Moshe Rabbeinu's. Everybody came out to this event. So Ramban says, we're getting a sneak preview already, that before we talk about the passing of Aaron, it says, Kol ha'eda, as if to indicate that in the upcoming narrative, we'll have full participation. The Psikta Zutrus says, for a change, the Jewish people came in one heart and one mind and not seeking pretexts. They weren't looking for trouble this time. Previously, they looked for trouble, now they were not looking for trouble. Oh, they're going to find trouble soon. And there will be issues they weren't looking for. And that's what it's called, to give you an understanding of their attitude and approach, which was actually appropriate. What's Har Ha'ar? So Rashi says, Har Ha'ar actually describes this mountain summit, strange mountain summit. It was a har al gabe har, a mountain upon a mountain. So you had a mountain base, a very wide mountain base, and on top of this wide mountain base, there was another mountain summit. So it looked like a mountain on top of another mountain. That's what it looked like. Tapuach cotton, like a small apple, al gabe tapuach gadol, a large apple. Now comes the question, did we not learn that there were clouds of glory that miraculously smoothed the path? Did we not learn that all mountains were flattened? So the Jewish people would camp in an equal plateau, and they shouldn't have to climb mountains and go in between mountains. They should be able to go as they pleased. What's going on with this mountain? So Rashi says, even though we learned that the clouds of glory go before them to flatten or smooth the ground out, there were 3 mountains left in the Sinai desert. And what are those 3 mountains? Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, and that was La Torah, so the Torah could be given on it. Hard Har, this mountain on top of mountain, which was the Kavuda Saharan for the burial of Aaron. The Har Nevoi, a mountain called Nevo, which was the Kavudas Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu himself will be buried there. Now, of course, you may ask the question, there are people who go to the Sinai Desert today. We have a very good approximation of where this is. And there are more than 3 mountains. There are hundreds of mountains, little mountains. So what does it mean to say that there are only 3 mountains that were left behind? The answer is simple. The Jewish people did not live in every square inch of Har Sinai or the Sinai Desert. But anywhere they did go, the mountains were flattened. So all the areas where there are no mountains, we can say safely there's a good chance our ancestors dwelt here. Comes the question then, here they come to Hirahar. If they come to Hirahar, how did the mountain remain? So Rashi tells us there were 3 places we came in which we camped, and yet all the mountains did not disappear. But that was for a reason. The mountain served a purpose. So this mountain summit atop a mountain base, this was the place of the passing of Aaron. As the Torah now narrates, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe v'el Aaron, God says to Moshe and to Aaron, B'hor hahar, on a mountain, on top of a mountain, al gvul eretz Edom, on the border of Edom. Why do you have to tell us on gvul eretz Edom? Don't we know where we're coming from? And anyway, first in verse 22 it mentions they came to Har. Now when God is speaking to Moshe and Aaron, and where is he speaking to them? B'har. Now we're getting GPS coordinates. This Har, where is it? It is on Gvul Eretz Edom. So now his question is, if it was important for us to know where Har was, why don't you tell us that in verse 22? Why did he wait till verse 23? And what is being conveyed here? So clearly, this may have something to do with the fact that Aaron's passing is going to take place here. So the fact that it's a mountain on top of a mountain is not necessarily meaningful. The fact that Tzaddik Goren maintains that, well, that was the name of the mountain. A mountain called Mountain. So it was called Mountain. That's what he says. It's just a place. So in that case, why are we being told the sudden coordinates? So Rashi says, because what is Hashem going to tell Moshe V'Aaron now? Look in verse 24. Yosef aharon al amov. Let Aaron get gathered onto his people, into his nation. It's because he will not come to the land Asher nasati livnei Yisrael, which I give to the children of Israel. Why won't he come? Like everybody else in his generation didn't come. No! Because of the waters of contention, which we read previously. So it's not Chas v'Shalom because Aaron was unwilling to go to Eretz Yisrael, therefore it was decreed that he shouldn't go to Eretz Yisrael like the rest of the people. Aaron and Moshe were supposed to go to Eretz Yisrael. There was no decree against them. They were always willing to go, so why didn't they go? That's another story, because it was a secondary event, not the primary thrust. But at any rate, there's the emphasis here on Aaron's passing. And only when there's the emphasis on Aaron's passing, which is conveyed by means of divine speech to Moshe v'Aaron, only when that happens do we get coordinates of Al-Gvul Eretz Edom. So Rashi says, yep, Al-Gvul Eretz Edom, Magid, which comes to teach us, because they reached out in friendship to Esau. It didn't work, by the way. We try to assimilate, and we got rebuffed. They said, no, you're too Jewish for us. But we tried to reach out. We wanted to curry favor with the nation of Edom. So because of this, nifritzu ma'aseim, there was some kind of diminishment in their behavior. The Jewish people's behavior was impacted. There was a weakening of our Yiddishkeit. There was a weakness that came about through our desire to be at peace and at one with our Edomite neighbors and cousins. And that was something, because there was this weakening of Torah, this breakdown of Torah devotion, this paved the way for the loss of Aaron. Because we know that the loss of a tzaddik is indicative of a generation's inappropriateness. We fell short, we lost Aaron. We got too friendly with Edom. People think, it's so nice, multiculturalism. We're going to be one people. We're going to come together with all nations. We make a single unit. And this is going to be a wonderful, beautiful step forward in a peaceful world. Yeah, I don't think so. Not exactly, says the Torah. In fact, even making that attempt already had a negative impact on the Jewish people. And guess what? Because of it, we ended up losing Aaron. And so also the Navi, this is Eliezer ben Dido, says openly, Amrli Yeshafat, says to the Yeshafat is the king of Yehuda, Behischabercha im Achazyahu, when you became too friendly with Achazyahu. Achazyahu was another Jew. He was the king of Israel, the northern kingdom. Paratz Hashem es ma'asecha. So when you became too friendly with him, Hashem all of a sudden diminished or caused a breakdown in your work. And the Gemara, the Torah tells us there were ships that were lost at sea. And the Navi says that became because of your preliminary assimilation. Because you're reaching out to a Rasha. Because you're reaching out to a Rasha, any kind of connection to a Rasha invariably has some kind of negative impact. I'm going to tell you something that's going to shock your pants off. I'm going to tell it to you anyway. You should know. There's a guy named Nachman Bialik. He's a famous writer, and everybody quotes him. The fact is that he was a person who learned in Slobodka Yeshiva. He turned his back on Yiddishkeit in a very, very bad way. My great-grandfather, Hashem Yinka Damov, was in Yeshiva in Slobodka with the Baruch Ber Leibovich, the prized disciple of Chaim of Brisk. And Chaim Nachman Bialik came to see his old Rosh Yeshiva, the Baruch Ber. Baruch Ber was considered, was revered by the Talmudim. He came to see him. So I heard from my father, heard it from his father, heard from his father. So Mayel Tazeh, they came to the Rosh Yeshiva, and he said, Chaim Nachman would like to come in and see you. So the Baruch Ber said, no. So let him come in. So Chaim Nachman Bialik walked in, and the Baruch Ber clenched his eyes shut, and he said, Nachman, Nachman, I love you very much, but I cannot look at you. Because the Gemara says, Asr lehistakel al pnei rasha. You're not look at the face of a wicked person. You want to come to see me, you could see me, but I don't want to look at you. I can't look at you. And he refused to open his eyes. He didn't look at Chaim Nachman Bialik because the Baruch Ber Leibovich considered him to be a rasha. This is heavy stuff. So the point is that engaging with a person who espouses a rebellion against Torah mitzvahs, it's not healthy. It actually could diminish us. And it happened with Aaron. It happened. The Jewish people lost Aaron. Why? Because they were too friendly. Because they said, Edomites, come, let's be friends. You'll let us in. We'll pay money. And many of the Mefarshim maintained that it was a tragic mistake. That reaching out in friendship to Edom should never have been done. Rashi tells us this is why we get coordinates.
What should they have done? Like gone to war with them? They're not permitted
go around them.
Just go around.
Simply go around. She never even asked them for a favor.
What's a favor? They would have paid.
It's a favor.
That's a favor?
Well, they said
it's
no.
It's a business transaction.
They said no. We said please. No, please. We learned this yesterday. He said, please, can we go through? Adam said, oh, no. I don't care if I make money on it. I hate you even more. All right, so that's what this is the impact of the confrontation, which causes the loss of Aaron HaKohen. Now, what happens when Aaron HaKohen actually passes? So the Ensuing Psukim speak about when Aaron HaKohen passes. And Aaron HaKohen gets how he gets his clothes are taken off, and placed his raiments are placed on his son, and Moshe comforts Aaron and says how lucky you are, you're passing on, that you're getting to see that your son has your raiments, and so on and so forth. And Aaron passes, and all the Jewish people are mourning and weeping. There's mass sadness. And what happens after? And then, if what they broke into the next chapter, which has nothing to do with the next chapter, but it happens to be the beginning of chapter 21, it says, Vayishma Knani, the Canaanite king, the Canaanite heard. Who was the Canaanite? Melech Arad, the king of Arad, Yoshev HaNegev, the Negev dweller. What did he hear? Kibo Yisrael derech hasorim, that the Jewish people had come by the way of the Meraglim. Now we're coming up the same way. So they want to come to Eretz Yisrael. By Yilachem Yisrael, they declare war on Israel. By Yish and Shevi, they were able to get a single captive. So let's take a look in the Rashi on Aleph. Yishma Knani. What did he hear? So Rashi says, Shama Shemei Saharan. He heard that Aaron died. So assimilation, even ever so mild assimilation, caused the death of Aaron. What did the death of Aaron cause? The king of Arad heard that Aaron died. And then so what happened? So what if Aaron died? Then Istalko Anane Arkovet, and the clouds of glory suddenly dissipated. Like it says in Maseches Rosh Hashanah, Amalek. Yep, this is Amalek. He disguises himself as a Canaanite. Me'olam Ritzuas Mardus Liyisrael. Amalek is always the whip. Always there to whip us. Never loses a moment. Mizuman b'chal eis l'paranias. Always ready for trouble. Always ready. In other words, that Amalek is like the strap. It's like the strap on the wall. Anytime we misbehave, the teacher points at the strap. This is what happens. We think we'll assimilate, and after we assimilate, and after we become like everybody else, what will happen? Then we'll have a better life. They'll say, oh, you're not so Jewish. Wonderful. Finally, you've come to join the nations. What happens? The worst of the worst comes at the end. Amalek, we get whipped with Amalek. Doesn't mean, I'm not saying it's a reason Hashem. We don't know why Hashem does what he does, but it's a historical fact that cannot be denied. That in the places where there was the greatest assimilation, there was the greatest persecution. It's counterintuitive. In World War II, which country in Europe were Jews most emancipated?
Germany.
Most assimilated?
Germany.
Most into marriage? Germany. And that was the whip. So we see that the Jewish people always, whenever we get a little deviant, Hashem's got a whip for us. And the whip, this is Amalek. Now it's interesting, Rashi says really two things in there. He says, Ma'ilam Ritzuas Mardos Liyisrael. We're always the whip, the rebellious whip. And then we say something else. Mizuman b'chaleis leparanias. Amalek is always waiting for trouble. Always waiting to exploit our difficulties. We're having a difficult time. Amalek says, now is when I jump in. In other words, he exploits the weaknesses. So, I'm going to direct you to the Urim book. We're going to conclude with really a fascinating lesson about this business of Amalek and their preparedness always to attack us. Siman Yud Zayin. Bottom of page Chavot. So the Rebbe quotes these two psukim here and brings down both Rashis that we learned. The Rebbe suggests the following: that the kefal haloshim b'divrei Rashi, the seeming redundancy in the words of Rashi. First, number one, Rashi says me'elam ritzuas mardas liyisol. Amalek is always the whip, always the whip. And number two, mezumen b'chaleis leparanias, always ready for paranias. Misyaches l'shnei miniim l'melchamtei hamasmedes shal Amalek b'vnei Yisrael. This speaks of, or to, the two distinct causes of Amalek's attack on the nation of Israel. Number one, Aleph. Number one, Me'olam. Me'olam means literally to the world, but forever. Me'olam, forever. Ritzuas mardos liyisrael. This is the whip that comes to strike the Jewish people. Meaning, B'goydel sinasiyas Amalek liyisrael, in Amalek's insatiable hatred for the Jewish people. Hu menasa lihilachem behem tamid. Amalek is always trying to whip us. Amalek doesn't take a day off. Whenever he could possibly harm the Jewish people in any way, shape, or form, Amalek is there. Kol eimes shadavar misavshe. They will not lose an opportunity to harm us. Every opportunity they can, they will try to do something to bring about negativity, suffering for the Jewish people. That's number one. Number two, mizuman, prepared b'chol leis at any time, leparanius. What does this mean? Amalek mishtadel lenatzel his damnius. Amalek seeks to utilize opportunities. Shein bechinas eis leparanius, where the Jewish people have paved the way for difficulty, paved the way for tzaras. When we pave the way for tzaras, zmanim shel yirid ruchnius, what brings about paranius, what brings about troubles for the Jewish people? When we abandon Hashem, when we forget who we are on a spiritual level. This makes us susceptible to attack. This is a zman of yirid ruchnius, when we're in a state of spiritual decline. So the spiritual decline makes us open to attack. It takes away from us, if you will, the ananei hakavod, the divine clouds of glory. The Rebbe explains what he means here. He said both of these causes can be seen in Amalek's first war with the Jewish people. Amalek, of course, attacked us when we're leaving Mitzrayim and we're heading towards the giving of the Torah. Amalek attacks us now again when we're leaving the desert and heading towards the land of Israel. Every time we try to fulfill our destiny, Amalek is there to attack us. Amalek doesn't want the Jewish people's destiny fulfilled. Amalek doesn't want us to self-actualize. And there's two major moments, at least during the leadership of Moshe Rabbeinu, in which we're headed towards fruition, maturation, the development of who we're supposed to be as a nation. One is the receiving of the Torah. And the other is taking a precedence in our eternal homeland, Eretz Yisrael. So Amalek, it says the first time, Ba Amalek lehizdavig liyisrael kodim l'chol ha'umes. Amalek is the nation that we reserve special enmity for, because Amalek is the nation that said, the Jewish people are leaving Egypt and everybody's terrified of them. I'll show you. They're not so frightening. They're not unstoppable. And this is Mirev Sinasi Yisrael, because of his incredible hatred to the Jewish people. Amalek was the first one. And Amalek got burned. And Amalek suffered. But in the meantime, Amalek cooled off the proverbial hot bath by jumping in and burning himself. But his self-scalding, in the end, made us less invincible. It took the shine off our armor. And that came purely out of hatred. Then, when did Amalek come? Amalek came after we were quarreling with Hashem. After quarrel. And God said, you keep asking, am I here? You keep asking, am I going to protect you? Now you'll see. As the famous metaphor that Rashi brings in the way back in the beginning of Exodus. Al riv b'nei Yisrael v'al naseisem es Hashem. That what did Amalek attack for? Because we quarreled with Hashem, because we tested Hashem, because we said, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu, is God amongst us, or maybe not. In other words, Amalek smelled blood. He smelled decline in our spirituality. And when Amalek smelled this decline, Amalek knew, now I can come in and attack. Intuitively, Amalek knew this. Intuitively, Amalek knew that as long as our Yiddishkeit is strong, we will be strong. As long as we were weakened from within, Amalek knew there was an attack that was ready to be successful. But Hu Hadin, the same thing happens now as Amalek attacks us, preparing as we are towards the self-actualization of coming into the land of Israel. Af hi nova mishnei miniyim elu. It came from two things. What did it come from? There were two events that are taking place here, even though they're not mutually exclusive. Number one is the passing of Adam. Shama shamei Adam, because it says Vayishma Knani. Ma Shama, what did he hear? What did he hear? He heard that Aaron died. And when Aaron died, so he heard Nistak Vananei HaKavod. The divine protection has now been diminished. They're not invincible anymore. Well, what else did he hear? He heard about what precipitated this. What precipitated it?
Was it cohesion?
Our not lack of cohesion, but our inappropriate cohesion. Our seeking friendship and closeness with Edom. And when we saw friendship and closeness, Nischabru kan, Lihiskarav le'esav. They tried to rekindle something with Esav. And that's when Nifritzu Ma'aseim, there was a decline. there was a decline. The fact that we even came close to Esau meant that something declined. There was some kind of impact on a spiritual level. A matzav of Yerid Ruchnius. And when there was a moment of Yerid Ruchnius, Amalek said, now, when they're weak spiritually, now they can be attacked. And so we see that the same thing happens in the first attack of Amalek, and the same thing happens in the second attack of Amalek. And what can we all learn from the story, the narrative of the passing of a desert high priest? What can we learn from this story of Amalek's attack? We can learn that we have enemies who hate us, and they'll always be a Matsuas Mardas. But we have to also realize and recognize that intuitively, subconsciously even, they know when we are weaker in our Yiddishkeit, and we make ourselves susceptible to attack. And that the stronger we are from within, and the way we're strong, our robustness, comes from spiritual health. We are in a spiritual healthy state. We're spiritually robust, and that provides us with the strength and the inner unity to be able to overcome our enemies, and they smell it, and they know it. So it was then, and so, my dear friends, it is nowadays.